Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone. It looks like I might have to allow some mics. So hang on one second while I do that. Okay, I think I've allowed mics for all of the work group members. And I can see a couple of you, so it must be working. Let me make sure I got everybody. There's a couple more coming in.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello, how are you?
My storm shutters are up and we are ready.
All right. This is an exciting time for sure. Let's see. I should have gotten, oh, Jennifer, hang on.
Thank you.
Okay, I should have gotten everyone, all of the work group members. If not, please let me know. That's more in the lobby. I'm just letting in. And choose. Okay, I think we're good. All right, welcome. Thank you again. Thank you so much for being here. I know this is a crazy week, and many of you are in the path of that enormous hurricane. So I really, really appreciate you being here today. We will go ahead and get started. I have a, let's see, I have a PowerPoint I wanted to share, just a quick one today. You should be able to see it now. Go. A few housekeeping requests. We do have members of the public on this call. Unless you're a work group member, please keep yourself on mute until the end of our meeting. I think it's set up now so that you can't unmute yourself. So at the end of the meeting, I will unmute everybody and allow you to make your comments. If needed, at the end, there will be time for public comment. We do have some new members joining us today as parent reps. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate your input. We'll do some quick introductions. My name is Amber Bombach, and I'm the Director of Library Media and Instructional Materials at the Florida Department of Education. Work group members, I'll call a quick attendance. Go ahead and state your name, your district, and anything else you want to say. I have to do it off my sheet here because I can't see you anymore. Let's see, starting with Terry Adams. Is Terry there? She may have written to me and said that she wasn't going to be available due to the storm. How about Tasha Bates?
I am here and I am located in Okaloosa County.
Hi, Tasha, thank you. And Christy Humberger.
I am Christy Humberger, and I am in Collier County, Florida.
Thanks, Christy. Thanks for being here. Michelle Jarrett.
Had to unmic. Hi, I am Michelle Jarrett. I am the library supervisor in Osceola County, and I am also the president of the Florida Association for Media and Education. And I am coming to you live from my living room. Nope, my bedroom, because we are hurricane prepping.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you for being here. Lori Pick. No, Lori. Excuse me. Chris Smith. Sorry about that. I've got this cold that's sticking in my throat. Ruth Witter.
Hi, this is Ruth Witter. I'm here. I'm in Santa Rosa County.
Hi, Ruth. Amelia Zukowski. Amelia, you're on mute. Excuse me. Amelia, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amelia Zukowski. I am the program specialist for instructional media in St. Johns County. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks for being here. Michelle Beavers. Oh, Michelle is in the lobby. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to get this cough under control so I can speak to you. I'm losing my voice. All right, Michelle, let me unmute you. Michelle, we are just sharing our names. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice, and our counties. You may still be coming in. We'll skip to Julie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry. It kept clicking me off. I kept joining and it kept sending me back out. I don't know what happened, but Michelle Peterson from Brevard County.
All right, thank you for being here, Michelle. Julie Dashel.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Julie Dashel. I'm a parent rep from St. Johns County.
Thank you, Julie. Jamie Merchant. Is Jamie here?
I am here. My name is Jamie. I am in Lee County.
Hi, Jamie. Thank you for being here. And Jennifer Pippin.
Hey y'all, Jennifer Pippin here. I'm from Indian River County Parent Rep. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us. All right, sorry about that coughing fit. I'm hoping I got it under control. Let's see. We're going to move ahead to review our purpose. The purpose of us meeting together is because in statute, excuse me, it says the department shall develop an online training program for school librarians, media specialists, and other personnel involved in the selection and maintenance of library media and collections or materials maintained on a reading list. This training must assist reviewers in complying with the requirements of section 1006.31 paren 2. The department shall make this training available no later than January 1st, 2023, no later than July 1st, 2023, and annually thereafter. Each superintendent, yeah. My bureau chief, Miss Angelia Rivers, is going to take over reading the slides for me because I'm losing it here. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. No later than July 1, 2023, and annually thereafter, each superintendent must certify to the department that all school librarians and media specialists employed by the district have completed the online training program. Last week, we met and discussed the first couple of bullets from our summary that was outlined in last week's PowerPoint. This is a rough draft, and it covers some of the points that you made last week. I'm sure I missed some things, but I'd like to capture all of the essentials so that when we start building the training, we have all of the pieces in front of us. We discussed each material must be selected by a school district employee that holds a valid educational media specialist certificate. Selection based on editorial reviews, age appropriateness, using committee, school advisory committee, or library advisory committee to review purchases before adding to collection, not necessarily before purchase. Maintenance, musty, acronym, M, misleading, factually incorrect, U, ugly, worn beyond repair, S, superseded, new edition, or a better book on topic available. T, trivial, of no literally or scientific merit. Y, your collection, irrelevant to the needs and interests of your readers. Or from Okaloosa, condition of the material, duplication of seldom used material, obsolescence and or inaccuracy of information, lack of circulation. Reading list, recommended or assigned reading doesn't pertain to optional reading lists. I wish we could magnify this. Sorry. So we'll pause here and have some quick discussion on this. This was just some pieces that I captured from our conversations last time. Is there anything that needed to be added to this? Anything else to say?
Well, editorial reviews, that's kind of what got us in trouble with a lot of stuff we already have in our libraries. So I don't even like that idea on there, honestly.
Can you describe a little bit more about that, Michelle?
So like the book Gender Queer has a lot of great reviews out there, and that obviously is sexually explicit. It doesn't really tell you necessarily in the reviews what that book's about. A lot of reviews are actually paid for by the publishers to get their book accepted and out there. So I don't even look at editorial reviews as a true source to judge a book up by.
Excuse me. It is in statute that book selection that we need to be using, peer-reviewed journals, including some editorial reviews in our selection of materials. So it sounds like maybe that's something that we need to discuss. Anyone else have any comments? Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Amber.
I had a
That is in
question.
State statute. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You can finish your state statute comment. I'm sorry.
It is in state statute that peer-reviewed journals are to be used for choosing books, and that's part of House Bill 1467. And when we look also at coursework for people getting their Masters of Library Science, it's also listed in coursework very specifically that they must be objective, not objectionable, objective, non-biased, peer-reviewed articles and journals for choosing library books.
I guess that's the point is how do you find the non-biased ones? Where I mean, like, is there a certain group that they're talking about?
When it's quoted out of textbooks, I can go get my notes. It's in my book bag. It says very specifically Kirkus, SLJ, book list, school library connection. I know there's more. Like it, and then it specifically states it cannot be things like Goodreads, Amazon reviews, because those are not objective. Those are by like your general users or readers, not professionals in the field.
Okay.
And then that's in statute also.
Horn Book is another one as well.
Yes.
I had a question about trivial of no literary or scientific merit. There's really nothing in statute that defines literary value. So how do we, I guess, close the circle on that?
For that portion, that's under, we talked a little bit last time about how do we create maintenance, procedures for our libraries, and that would be, and the media specialists on the call today told me that they used this acronym called MUST-D. And so the T is, it doesn't have literary or value or scientific merit. And that would be based on professional opinions, I'm imagining. But Workgroup, I'll let you answer that question.
So I can use a perfect example. For example, when Pluto was not declared a planet anymore, there was a ton of literature that was put out that Pluto was a planet, and then it changed in how it was researched and defined. And feel free to jump in, anyone else that's a media specialist. So we had to change our collections and flip information to actually find information that was correct and weed out information that was not correct. And so it became a little planet or a small planet. I'm not sure the exact definition, but I'm using this as an example. And you want to make sure that you get trivial or non information out of your library so that you're following current facts. Does that help answer that question for you?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I think it's more, I guess that's like helps the scientific part of it. But when it comes to like the 3-part Miller test, the literary value is what really.
So literary merit can also be like Nobel Peace Prize award winners as well.
Okay.
That go through those materials that have made, and I'm just throwing out award-winning list, are books that have gone through peer-reviewed not just publishers, but academic reviews in making it. So if they don't have that process, they're not making that literary mark, then they would be removed from your collection.
I can give you another example also. Many times we will have people who self-publish and send us books.
Yes.
And they will be grammatically incorrect, or it would be a person's life history, a local person's life history that does not reflect our school library. It's not appropriate for an elementary library. So those would be trivial for us. They would be of no literary value to my particular school at that time. We don't want to put something out that is, for example, the word Antarctica was misspelled on the spine label and on the title of the book. So that would be something that we would not want to put on our shelves.
Should that not read of no literary or scientific merit? Not of?
I believe that's a typo. Yes, you're correct. Jennifer, you've got your hand raised. Did you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. I actually wanted to discuss age appropriateness. I've seen across the state that people feel that age appropriateness is in reference to the sexual content that is able to be in books. We just had a school board meeting last night in Indian River County, and our school board chair said that they're waiting to start doing more reviews of books because she feels that, excuse me, all the ladies, gentlemen on this call, that oral sex is appropriate for a high school level. And she's waiting for basically our work group and the DOE to come down with age appropriateness for sexual explicit content. And I think that there's been some, talk about that. So I think that, especially with this work group, having age appropriateness on there, saying, not including, sexually explicit content or pornography level in our schools.
So that brings up a good point, Jennifer, in that it's not, that word age appropriate is not defined yet. DOE does have a work group that's running soon that is going to, and their task is to define what age appropriate means. So we're kind of running these work groups parallel. So I'm hoping that, by the end of this, when we're putting the final touches on our training, we will have an answer, a definition to what that term actually means.
Thank you. Yeah, because what we kind of said was, you're not going to give a trigonometry book to a kindergartner. That's not age appropriate. But I think that a lot of people, across the state, across the country even, are trying to say, well, children are doing this anyways. And I think that, A, B, and C is appropriate for high school. A, B, and C is appropriate for middle school. So I'm just trying to make sure that we're, these books are free of pornography or sexually explicit material, and then done as age appropriate.
All right, so is there any more discussion to be had on the materials that we talked about last time?
When you talked about last time, we weren't here last time. I don't know what you were talking about.
Right, we met a week ago. The media specialists on the call met a week ago. The parent reps were not, excuse me, were in a approval process with DOE, and that group of people, you guys, were not approved yet. But we did start the meeting because we do have to get this training done fairly quickly. So we did kick it off last week, and I sent you the PowerPoint and the information from our meeting last week. So this that's up on the screen is just referencing the discussion that we had last week. And none of this is set in stone. This is just something to put up for you to react to.
Okay.
Okay, then we will go ahead and move on. So that's going to bring us up to today's topics. And just as a quick reminder, we have 2 more meetings that are scheduled coming up October 4th and 11th. I will make sure that everybody is invited to all of those. And then I imagine we will need to have additional meetings as well. And I'll let you know about those as soon as they come up. So today we'll start with discussion on collection policies and posting the policies on the school website. I'm going to go ahead and, well, I guess I can leave up the screen so that you can look at it, look at it while we talk. So we can talk about, let's start with that first bullet, procedures for developing library media collections and posting the procedures on the school website. We talked a little bit about that last time, but what are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I had my camera off. That's so weird. I've had this question come up recently. This procedure for developing library media collections, is this going to mean that each school has their own collection development plan, or this is one collection development plan for the district? Because we believe that every school is different and we need to meet the needs of the students that we serve. So looking at this, it doesn't seem to be clearly defined. Posting those procedures on a school website is not difficult at all. That's just simply posting that PDF of the collection development plan that you've created, which I know in my particular district has already been happening. But I think the question has come up, is the expectation that at the minimum, there is one collection development plan for the district, or that each school should be posting their individual collection development plan based on the students and the communities that they serve?
So that's a great question, Michelle. And I was rifling through to find the exact statute language because I couldn't remember if it said district or school. And it indeed says district. I'm reading from it's section 1006.28, paren 2, paren D, and this comes from 1467. It says each district school board shall adopt procedures for developing library media center collections and post the procedures on the website for each school within the district. So it sounds like the requirement is that it's an overall district policy. That doesn't mean that, schools can't, dive into that even further and have individual school policies that they would each post, as long as, the law says that the district has to have a policy.
Is there a way to create, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to catch up like with all of this information that was discussed last week, but is there a way to create a policy to use what I would call an electronic robot, that if a district is going to purchase a library book, the publisher needs to submit it electronically, and this electronic robot would have key phrases or words inputted into that system that would quickly filter through the book. And if it comes up positive for any of these keywords or phrases, then the book is not passed through or approved, basically. And I've been looking at one, it's thunderstone.com. Just a thought that I don't know I don't know the cost associated with anything like that, but with as much as technology has just grown, maybe making everything, our policies, to use technology would be productive.
And Jamie, while I respect that idea, pulling just certain words out of a book, out of context, doesn't really give you it. There's nothing like having somebody who actually reads the book or whatever else. So using electronics to do that, I don't know if the expense would be the best choice for finding books that are appropriate for each student.
Jamie, what was the site you just mentioned?
Thunderstone.com.
Thunderstone?
Yes, I'll see if I can put it. Am I allowed to put it in the chat, Amber?
Thunder, like lightning and thunder, right? Thunderstone?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe that could be, it may not be perfect, but that also might be just a simple way, if it's something that's free, that we could utilize as just a layer of filtering.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just want to echo that I think that's sort of a dangerous path to go down, to just look for words that some folks deem inappropriate, because you really lose the context of how those words are used. And I think that's a real slippery slope. So I do not think that's I would not go that way.
Well, it could give you a heads up that you need to look at that book at least, right? I mean, it could give you like a layer of, well, maybe there's something there we need to look at.
But I think there's already so many resources that we have out there when we have to look at these peer-reviewed journals. And even if we are looking at other like vendor sites and things like that, like Amazon or whatever, just to get an idea of what's in a book, we know what we need to read and take a look at closer when we're selecting materials. Do you know what I mean? So if it's just for use as a tool to identify what we need to look closer at, what I'm saying is that we already have a lot of tools in place to let us know that we do need to look closer.
And I'm not, I agree. I think that there are instances where potentially content warnings might be a useful tool to help parents make sure they're making the right decisions for what their children have access to in school. But I would agree that I think some of the existing systems probably fill that need.
Well, and I'm even kind of wondering when we're looking about like what words would we be looking for? Like that list could be endless or that list could be nothing, but
Right.
who determines what that list is?
Who decides the rule? Yes, or the words, excuse me.
You know, so
Yeah. Well,
even when we're looking at the pornography laws of 847.012 or harmful to minors, which is 847.001, you know, there are multiple criteria in there before we can determine that a book is harmful to minors or that a book is obscene, because it has to be, and I can go back to statute and read it, but it has to be, you know, it has to have all three of the criteria in there. You know, when you read the definition, it says and, not or. And so until, you know, it's kind of like it's the Miller test, but it's not the Miller test. But are we going to put in, you know, does this word have bestiality? Does this book have sadomasochism? You know, some of the things that a lot of parents and families across the state have been objecting to are not what is in our pornography laws. So those are not words that we're going to put into and have them analyzed, whether it's a lesbian or a homosexual couple. That is not defined in statute as being pornography. So that would not be something that any sort of filter would pick up, because it's that those books are free of porn.
Well, and I think, you know, maybe too with this work group or maybe the parallel work group, we need to establish a community standard. I mean, I think a good community standard would be if we can't say it at a public school board meeting, or we can't say it on the radio, or it can't be printed in a newspaper, you know, maybe that is something that the community standard says if we cannot say it at, you know, again, a school board meeting publicly, it shouldn't be on, you know, the children's library shelves. So even if we came up with a system that said, you know, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, you know, because anybody could say, well, it has literary merit because I identify with this person, or I have a family situation similar to this person, but that is still not keeping, you know, pornography out of the hands of children against state statute.
But when the law says prevailing standards of the community, every community in Florida is different. And I think that's what's going to make this very difficult, because Florida is very locally based. So what is acceptable in Orlando at one particular school in Orlando is not going to be acceptable at another school in Orlando, and vice versa. So I think that's what's going to make this difficult, because even in my own community, different schools are made up of different people, and the prevailing standards of the community as a whole are the community of students and families that that school serves. That's where an individual collection development plan comes in place. That is where library media specialists, knowing their students and the students that they serve and making sure that they have the books that are appropriate for the students that they serve, is so vitally important. And so defining, last week we asked for a state attorney to help us define those statutes, because this group of people is probably not going to agree into what those definitions of pornographic material is, because I think it's different for every family, but it's different for every kid. You know, what flies for my 17-year-old is probably not going to fly for another 17-year-old, and would probably be less appropriate than for another 17-year-old, or more appropriate. I don't know, but I'm only her parent. And so having some input from an attorney, because that's where things are going to go in Florida, is to attorneys. So having some input for attorneys to make those decisions is going to be beneficial to this work group.
Agreed. Will we be getting that before this work group is finished with our final, results?
As far as feedback from attorneys, I can take, excuse me, any questions, that you may have to our legal team here. We're all kind of grappling with this, with these statute changes and trying to define some of these terms. So I'm not sure that they would be able to give you a definitive answer, to any of these items. And I think that we're getting off track just a little bit here. Our goal as the state is to provide a training for the entire state, based on what is currently written in statutes. So we're not going to be more restrictive than what is written. We're not going to be, less restrictive than what is written. And then districts, can take that training. They'll have to take that training. And then they, of course, can create policies that are more restrictive if their district decides that's the direction that they want to go in. So I think we've kind of we've talked a lot about the book selections meet the criteria in 1006.403D. The next bullet point we've already kind of talked about, but we can revisit just in case there's anything else to add. Require consultation of reputable, professionally recognized reviewing periodicals and school community stakeholders. We've talked about the periodicals a little bit, but what about the stakeholders? What are your thoughts there?
Well, as always, if I have a staff member who is looking for material to support their curriculum, I do my best to find the appropriate materials. Also, our students who come with different questions or need help, they want the next book in a series or anything. So we always try and have a suggestion box or whatever else. And of course, then we look to see, are they appropriate for our school? And do we have the money at that point in time? Amber, by the way, Chris Smith is on the.
I saw her in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. So some of you last time talked about using your school advisory committee or library advisory committee as kind of your stakeholder group in making some of these decisions. How would you use that group, or how would you how would you recommend that we recommend to schools the use of those stakeholders?
So one of the things that happens in my county is that they analyze their collection to start out, and then they develop a 3-year collection development plan. So they're looking at in 3 years, how are they going to renew their collection and keep it as up to date as possible? And so they're looking with the first year, they're going to look at their 100s, 200s, maybe their 500s or something, and then updating their fiction. But after they do that, so as they're replacing, they're going to use those reputable journals to replace their content. And then they're presenting it to their school advisory council for approval after they have come up with their collection development plan. But their plan for the year is they present that to their stakeholders for approval. They present it to their stakeholders, they present it to their principal. Once that's approved and it's approved at the district level, then they're given permission to spend their district monies. So we have a layer of protection and process, making sure that they're following their collection plan. And going back to some of those reputable sources, I'm utilizing the collection program in schools, which was actually written by Marcia Martis. She's a professor up at Florida State, and she is a professor in the Library and Information Studies program. And so in here, she cites School Library Connection, School Library Journal, Teacher Librarian, of course, looking at the book yourself, and then some different jobbers like Follett, Mackin. But then she also talks about crowdsource reviews, which is like Goodreads and Library Thing. And while they're great, remember that they're not objective. And then kind of goes through, why those are great and why they aren't. And that, like I said, is a college textbook. So I was kind of refer my library media specialists who might not have their MLIS back to some of those coursework books that are used at the college level. So that can always be helpful as well.
Michelle, can you put the name of that book in the chat, please?
Oh, I sure can. Absolutely.
Just a thought, just in terms of like community stakeholders, I feel like it might be worth it, to define, clearly acceptable input from community stakeholders in the sense of, does it have to be the SAC? Does it have to be a committee? Can it be an online form? Like what avenues can schools use to get that input from the community stakeholders? I mean, we're personally doing the library committees here, but just thinking in terms of, what would be most effective.
So Ruth, can you explain a little more for me then, like exactly the steps that you would go through in order to, have the list and then the steps that the committee goes through?
Absolutely. Of course, like everybody else, we're still working and we're still learning and trying to go through the process. But what we do in developing our committees is, thinking in terms of transparency. I ask our schools to advertise that they are looking for members, and then we have that advertisement go out. I'm not telling them specifically how to advertise, like whether it has to be on social media, their website, or, within the school. We have some schools that have a very active population. And so, their parents are already in the building all the time. So for them, they might need to just advertise within. To those parents that are already in the building, just to make it easier. But we do require that it's made up of The library media specialist, admin can be a part of the team if they would like, and usually they are. And then at least 2 parents and then at least 2 teachers. And so that's kind of our minimum. And then we also ask for student representation in the secondary grades in middle school and high school. And so what they do in the committee is that they're bringing together their potential purchases that they have, or maybe orders that they have already placed that have not been made available for student use yet. And they just review that. They give the committee the opportunity to go over them. Of course, it's also new. So as far as like, going past that, that's where we're at right now. We do ask them to keep minutes. And any input from that committee would go on those minutes. And then we were asking the schools to post those online so that they're available for other community stakeholders to see.
When your committee meets, do they require unanimous approval of new materials, or how does the decision work?
So the statute is not asking for approval, it's asking for consultation and input. So it's still that what it does say is that the books have to be added by a certified library media specialist. So we leave it to the decision and the discretion of the library media specialist in the same way. What I have advised our librarians to do is, if the other part of the statute that we haven't gotten to yet is that, your books have to be made available online. Well, I think we did actually talk about that last week, but if they do end up adding it, it is going to be available for those stakeholders to see on the library catalog. But as a courtesy, they could let that stakeholder know that they were adding it, just to be proactive so that they would be aware. And then, of course, every district has a grievance procedure. And so then if they did disagree with it, then they would go through that materials grievance procedure, which is where the power should lie in the process.
Ours is very similar in St. Johns County. I don't know if you can hear, but we have our media advisory committee in the same process. They have to go through that. We did this year, so they have to go through that. They share their lists that they've cultivated and done peer-reviewed articles and looked at reviews before they purchase that. They share that with their media advisory committee. They have a set media advisory committee that is consistent with instructional staff, parents, and a community member, which is similar to how SAC is formed. And then they share that list. They just as Ruth had stated, it does not have to have a consensus that they approve it, as the state statute says. And then they get their information, and then they can make their purchase once the principal signs off on it. So that is, how that has. Media advisory committee gives input, and then there is a process for grievances.
Is the process for grievances open to everybody or just the people in the committee?
No, it's open to the community.
That county, I believe.
In the county, yeah, county, and that was before the state statute was issued.
Okay.
That's a best practice in libraries.
Yes.
And how often do your schools purchase items then? Is the media advisory committee only come together when you've created the list? Or is it something that, is it twice a year, or is it whenever the media specialist feels that they need to be pulled together?
That's a school-based decision.
Yeah. We have defined it countywide to ask them to meet quarterly, just for clarification purposes. But we have told them that they can meet on demand. If their community stakeholders for their school are open to a Teams meeting, they can do a Teams meeting and do the minutes from that as well. So they have some options. So we ask them to meet quarterly and then on demand as they would need to. They're not required to meet quarterly, but just as kind of a, people want some structure on what the expectations are. So, that's where we're at right now.
All right, we're going to go ahead. We've only got about 10 minutes left. So let's jump to our last bullet point, which is provide for library media center collections based on reader interest, support of state academic standards, and aligned curriculum and the academic needs of students and faculty. So I guess like how do you ensure that your collections provide for reader interest, provide for state alignment of standards? How do you ensure that, new material that you're looking at purchasing meets those requirements as well? Do you have policies that state that those things must be part of your collection, or is that something you do kind of ad hoc?
Well, one of the ways that my district make sure that it's based on reader interest is two things. There's always a suggestion box where kids can put in books that they're looking for. Teachers always keep, or media specialists always keep a list. If a kid says, oh, I'm looking for this, they'll write it down so they can add it to their list to purchase or take a look at it to purchase. But additionally, annually conducting a student interest survey, a student reader interest survey, making sure that they're continuing to meet the needs of the students, because, it's reader interest, but it's also, am I providing all of the activities and things in your district, or in my library that my students need? So are there enough maker activities? Is the space quiet enough? Is the space loud enough? All of those things. So you're doing a reader service to make sure the space itself is meeting the needs of all of the stakeholders in the space.
Thank you for that. That's so helpful. We had a school board meeting in Indian River County last night, and they were kind of, talking about how can we get an outreach to people to, be more proactive and listen. This is if this is not what you want, what do you want in place of it? So thank you. That's awesome. And I will definitely bring that to our next school board meeting, because that's very effective. So Indian River County, again, I can only speak for my county, hasn't purchased books since February of last year, because of all of the challenges and everything like that. So we're really struggling as a county, because they're saying that, teachers don't want to get fired. They're not putting out their books in their, personal libraries. None of our libraries are closed, but they're not purchasing materials until they get this, instruction from the Department of Education. So we're kind of on like the precipice right now of like, listen, we need to start ordering these books again. Librarians are speaking out. So, I think that people are so scared to get in trouble for, the books. Our superintendent said spooky books last night. I think he's trying to be funny because it's fall, but that is a great recommendation. Thank you so much. That's awesome. That really works.
As far as like the state standards, I know we're familiar with like the best standards, the Florida best standards, and there's a reading list and books and stuff that go with that. So I know that's one way that we develop our library media collections.
Sure.
I would be
We're
hesitant
always
to put-
analyzing if you have a special STEM program at your school, or
Mhm.
if you're an art school, that's part of your collection development plan, is that you're making sure that you're serving the needs of that population as well. In addition to making sure that you have those state best standards, or that you have whether it's the Sunshine State standards for science or NGSS standards for science, and making sure, if you have a high gifted population, making sure that you have enough challenging material for them. It's just knowing, it all starts with knowing your population. And that's why in my district, I continually say we cannot have a one size fits all, because at some schools, if I have 150 students who identified as gifted and talented, versus another school that only has 30 students identified as gifted and talented, I need to make sure I'm serving the needs of everybody. And so, no, you have to provide a collection that serves the needs of the students that you serve, but you have to know the students that you serve. So looking at the academic needs of your students and faculty goes back to knowing the demographics of the people that you serve, whether it's if you have a high ELL population, and then what are the languages of the students that you serve. I have some schools with very high Spanish speaking students and some with none, but that have a very high Haitian Creole population. So trying to make sure that we have books to meet those needs. really digging down into who are the students I serve, who is a part of my community, is incredibly important into developing that collection development plan, because that drives the books you put on your shelf.
Yeah, and you also have to look at the school mission and vision and the programs that you have to have at your school and what is needed. Like if you have an academy program and it's a veterinarian program, you're not going to put books on construction and applied science. And so it's very specialized. It's not a one size fits all. I was just, looking at our ODCs for other schools that we have. If there's a school improvement plan that needs to be highlighted, I'm going to make sure that I meet that goal for my school for 3 to 5 years. I'm going to make sure that it's focused and it's got priorities. And for my lowest quartile of where we need to, really hit what has to be hit so my kids can learn and meet student achievement. It's not just something where I'm putting books in randomly to fill a spot. If I see that my school is high school and I've noticed that I've got nothing in my 500s, which is your sciences and maths, and it's at a deficit, then I'm going to have to fill that in and make sure that that collection meets those needs for those kids. It's a scientifically driven process. It's well thought out. And so that's what collection development really is, which is why putting it in a one size fits all is difficult for professionally for me, because that's not how we've been taught. So because like I said, I have a vet program and then there's a tech science program down the road, or a fashion program. So I've got to make sure that I have those resources in that collection for those students. So I just want to piggyback on that because um, I think it's important. I also think it's important to think about a budget. We don't have endless amounts of money. And Chris Smith just said that in the chat, and that's really important. I was really going to bring that back and spin that around with collection development. Your 3 to 5 year plan, you've got to really be planned out and how you budget. You're running basically a small business if you think about it in some sort of fashion. Wasting funds is not a good fiscal idea. So we have to be really formulaic in how we plan our collection development.
So I'm going to stop you there. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of really great information about collection development and a lot of these other policies that we've talked about. And I'm hoping we can revisit them a little bit more, because I think there's more to be said here for next time. We've got like 2 minutes left, and I did want to leave some time for public comment if there is any. And it's just one thing to think about before we end this. I was talking to some colleagues today about this training and what they're envisioning this training looks like. So think about that. It looks like it's something that's going to have to be taken annually. There's no limit, to the length of time that, in statute that it needs, or the length that it needs to be. So start thinking about the training and how we want it to look. Like, what's the format? It says it has to be online, but that's all that it says. So I'd love to hear your ideas about that next time, or perhaps over email this week. But for now, let's go ahead and end this, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it up for public comment. Let me see if I can just give everyone the mic here. No. All right. I think you can raise your hand if you're interested in saying something that you haven't already said. Or if any members of the public wish to make a comment or question. Okay, Jen Cousins. I'm going to allow the mic and camera. Jen Cousins, go ahead.
Hi, I just had a question. I wanted to clarify what Ms. Pippin said, that no library books have been bought in Indian River since, was it March of last year? Before these bills even went into the system.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I'm just curious why they would preemptively stop buying them if these laws weren't a threat yet to our libraries. That's all.
We were challenging critical race theory and pornography and sexually explicit content books, and they weren't sure on, what direction that they were going to go in, if they were going to start purchasing some more like career books they talked about in the school board meeting. And then with the laws in transition through legislation, they just didn't want to purchase more books that we could be possibly challenging here in Indian River County. They just didn't want to make the wrong decision, is what the board said.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, can I go ahead and talk? This is Chris Smith. Okay, sorry, I don't know why I couldn't get in normally, but it is what it is. I do think when we're looking at the peer reviewed, the goal is to get the peer reviewed books, but especially for some of those very specific books, like the veterinarian program, in high schools when you deal with academies, something in the training needs to be said that there are going to be some books that you get that are going to be quote adult books, but it's not that it's any sexuality stuff. It's just that they are written for like auto mechanics. So I don't really know exactly how to word that, but if there is a curriculum driven need for an academy, it's going to be difficult to find peer reviewed books because they're just not going to be able to find that. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have it in your collection.
Okay, I have the hand raised, but I don't know if you're calling on people or not. Did she say something?
Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so I'm a little confused on when we're talking about sexually explicit versus pornography. Someone had made a comment about they're not the same. I'm confused on the difference when we talk about, I'm looking at 847.001 on the Florida statutes, where it says any book, pamphlet, magazine, printed material, however reproduced, or sound recording that contains any matter defined in 847.001, explicit and detailed verbal descriptions or narrative accounts of sexual excitement or sexual conduct that's harmful to minors. So I'm reading that as anything having to do with sexual excitement shouldn't be in our schools. Is that how you would read that? I guess that's my concern, is some of these words were not having the same meaning across the board for all of us.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. I'm not able to define those terms on my own. So that's definitely something that we would have to look into. And I'll take that to leadership here at DOE and see if we can get a response.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments before we break today? Okay,
is there any be doing this week to help with the work group? I mean, should we be reaching out to like maybe our board chair or our superintendent to see if there's, anything that we should be finding out, to help with our counties or neighboring counties to bring to the work group?
Yeah, if you would like to share collection development policies that already exist, or selection policies, or any of those kind of like policies that your district may already have in place that you think are good representations of the kind of work that we're trying to do, that would be great, because then when we look at creating the training, we can kind of piece together what we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can take sections from here and sections from there and kind of put it together. So yeah, that's a great question, Jennifer. Yeah, you can go ahead and email those to me. We do have a Teams channel set up. I don't know if it's going to be successful. Like I said, I struggle with Teams. Not everybody last week was able to get into it, but new members, I will definitely add you to that Teams channel so that you can see those documents that have been submitted already. All right, any other questions? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and break for today. Again, thank you so much. Please stay safe this week. I will be thinking about you all in Central Florida. Please, you have my email, you have my phone number. Please reach out if you need anything, and we will plan on meeting again next Tuesday. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Amber.